Following a successful partnership with Konami on the Silent Hill 2 remake, Bloober team is back, this time with a new IP, Cronos: The New Dawn. And similar to their previous work, Cronos embraces the survival horror genre, though this time with a greater focus on combat and less on pure psychological horror. And as a survival horror game, Cronos is excellent and fun to play, and without a doubt it's the best original IP from Bloober team in my opinion. However, the studio still struggles with the technical aspects of its games. As expected, Cronos is developed on Unreal Engine 5, and unfortunately it suffers from noticeable Traversal Stutter. While I don't think it's as severe as in Silent Hill 2, this issue still detracts from the overall experience, occasionally breaking immersion. Additionally, the game is heavy not only on the GPU but also on VRAM. It can easily reach more than 11GB at 1440p even when upscaling using DLSS quality. Although high VRAM usage isn't inherently bad, the issue here is that the game's textures aren't particularly impressive to begin with, and I think Bloober could have done a better job optimizing VRAM efficiency. And this brings us to the 3060 Ti, which unfortunately struggles a lot in this game even with the lowest settings and DLSS balance, primarily due to its 8GB VRAM limitation. Thankfully we can fix this using a console command. First we'll need this mod called Ultra Plus to enable the console. Simply download it, copy the binaries folder and skip the content folder. This mod includes its own visual tweaks, and copying the content folder would apply them as well, which could impact performance and VRAM usage, so avoid copying the content folder. After that, start the game, load a save and press the tilde key to open the console. Then type this command to adjust the amount of VRAM allocated to texture streaming. And setting it to 124 or 1GB significantly lowers VRAM usage and makes the game much smoother, as you can see here. And you might be wondering about the downsides. When it comes to texture quality, there is no noticeable difference between the default low textures and this modification. The only minor downside is that texture popping can become slightly more noticeable. Also, you need to enter this command each time you start the game. I tried using the engine INI file to make it apply on startup, but that didn't work. At least you can use the arrow up key to cycle through previous commands without having to retype them. And since we're on the topic of console commands, I want to show you a few more useful ones. The game natively supports reflex, but this feature is only active when frame generation is enabled, with no separate option to toggle it independently. But we can use this command to force it, which significantly reduces the PC latency and improves responsiveness. The second command simply removes the film grain effect. I found that this can make the image look cleaner, as you can see here, but it's ultimately a matter of personal preference. And the last one is a command that can completely disable lumen, which can give an extra 16% performance boost. However, this is not recommended as it drastically reduces visual quality. Still, if you're desperate for extra performance, you can give it a try. Cronos: The New Dawn supports ray tracing with hardware lumen, which slightly enhances the quality of the game's global illumination through more accurate ambient shading, along with better reflections on some surfaces like this TV and this vase. However, even with these small visual improvements, hardware lumen is extremely demanding. Its performance cost can go from 39% in a scene like this to a massive 74% on more complex scenes. Therefore, I highly recommend keeping ray tracing disabled. Let's move on to supersampling or upscaling, which is essential for achieving playable performance in this game. When comparing the upscaler side by side using the balanced mode, we can see that low TSR, which runs at an internal resolution equivalent to performance mode, holds up surprisingly well against XeSS and especially against FSR 3.1, which as usual suffers from noticeable stability issues. I also found that DLSS 4 with preset K works really well in this game and does not significantly suffer from the usual disocclusion problems. There is also an anti-aliasing setting which lets you disable AA entirely, use FXAA or choose TXAA, the standard GAA option. But since many graphical elements rely on temporal accumulation, disabling AA or switching to FXAA results in excessive noise and artifacts. Even TXAA at native resolution isn't as stable as the upscalers. The graphics options in Cronos The New Dawn closely resemble those in Silent Hill 2, and only two settings really matter when it comes to performance. The first is shadow quality, which doesn't seem to affect the actual shadow quality, but rather the resolution of volumetric effects, as you can see here. And this setting can substantially impact performance. Here there is around a 7% cost when moving from low to medium and 13% when going to high. But on other scenes like this one, the cost of medium can increase to around 11%. Because of this, I recommend low for GPUs like the 3060 Ti, while medium is a good choice if you have a more capable GPU with performance to spare. The second key setting for performance is shaders quality. This one controls how accurately surfaces respond to lighting as well as the reflectivity of certain materials. As we increase this setting, surfaces display more reflections and more lighting interactions. Performance-wise, there is around 11% cost when going from low and medium to high. Therefore, I recommend leaving this one at medium. Moving on to effects quality, this setting primarily controls the quality of special effects. With medium and high, we can see a slight increase to particles density in this scene, or here where the fire produces a heat haze effect at medium and high, which is absent at low. This setting also impacts refraction quality on certain surfaces. For example, on this wired glass, the surface distortions are visible at medium and high, whereas at low, the glass appears flatter and less realistic. Performance-wise, this setting has minimal impact in this scene, though in the fire scene there is a slight higher cost, and since medium and high look virtually identical, I recommend keeping this at medium. The last three settings don't change much in terms of performance. SSAO, as you can see here, works as a complement to Lumen by adding additional ambient shading, and it doesn't significantly affect performance, so keep it enabled. Next we have SSR or screen space reflections. On some surfaces like this one, SSR appears to be enabled regardless of the option selected. However, on certain other surfaces, this setting behaves as expected and toggles reflections properly. And as you can see here, performance is essentially the same between the two options, therefore I recommend keeping SSR enabled. Finally, there is SSS or subsurface scattering. This setting should control how light penetrates and scatters within translucent materials and surfaces such as skin, but in this game I haven't noticed any visual or performance difference between low and high, so it's best to just leave this one at high. So given everything we've discussed so far, these are my recommended settings for Cronos The New Dawn. Now let's compare the performance and visuals of the optimized settings against the Epic preset at 1440p using DLSS balanced, and I have set textures to low with the Texture Streaming.PoolSize at 124 or 768 on the RayTracing side to minimize any impact from VRAM usage and remove it from the equation as much as possible. And here on average we see around a 40% performance improvement when moving from the Epic preset to the optimized settings, and a massive 122% boost when moving from the Epic preset with RayTracing to the optimized settings. Before ending the video, I want to give a quick shout out to my Patreon. If you are able and would like to directly support my work, consider becoming a patron to get access to the highest possible quality of my latest videos, including this one. And a big thank you to all my supporters, and thanks to you as well for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and if not, leave a dislike. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.